this exercise, we will be publishing the RideStarted event. The purpose of this event is to advertise that a ride has just started. Other microservices can listen for the event and then perform various actions when they see it, such as updating their own state, triggering various jobs, or perhaps replicating data from the event. We will be using the framework we put in place in the last exercise to create our RideStarted event, and then publish it to our Outbox table at the appropriate time. Our first step is to define the event we want to publish. The RideStarted event will need to contain the important details about the ride so that any downstream applications have enough information to act accordingly. So let's go ahead and create that in the events package. So we're going to go and create a new class, and we'll just call it RideStarted. Now the RideStarted event is going to need to implement the event interface that we created previously. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now you'll see the 3 related problems there. That's because I've got some tests that actually rely on this, and I haven't actually implemented the necessary methods yet. So don't worry about that. As we implement those methods, those issues should go away. So one of the first things that we need to implement is we need a public static final. This is going to be a string, and we're going to call it event name. Now, for a value, we're just going to give it RideStarted, the same as the class. Now, the reason that we use a string, a hard-coded string here, rather than the actual class name, is because this is going to get passed down into other applications through our message bus. And we don't want to actually tie the implementation of this RideStarted event to other applications. We want the RideStarted event to be able to evolve internally if required. So if we need to refactor and rename it later, we want the flexibility to do that. By using a hard-coded string like this, we can rename this class, move it around, do whatever we want. And as long as this stays the same, everything downstream can still consume it exactly as they expect to. Now, the other thing we're going to need is we will want a private UUID, and this will be ride ID. Then we're going to want a private string, and this will be user email. So this is the identifier for the user who is actually initiating this ride. We want a private UUID vehicle ID. So this is the identifier of the vehicle that the ride applies to, and then a private local date time, and this is going to be start time, and again that's going to be the time that the ride starts at. So then the final thing that we want to do is implement some getters and setters. So we'll go ahead and generate those, and we don't need one for the event name, we just need one for the remaining private fields. So we'll go ahead and implement each of those, and you can see my errors have now gone away. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually publish our event. We're going to do that in the service package in the ride service impl. So let's go ahead and open that up. Now, the first thing that we need is we need access to an event publisher. So we're going to do private event publisher, and we'll just call that event publisher. Then, of course, we need to inject that. So we're going to add that to the constructor. And then we need to actually initialize it with the correct value. So this dot event publisher equals event publisher. And I'm missing a semicolon up here, so let's go ahead and add that in. Now, down in the start ride method, which is where we want to go next, I'll just call attention to the fact that this is marked as transactional. And that's pretty important here because remember, this is the transactional outbox. It's critical that when we update the state of the database and publish our event, that happens within the same transaction. And so we need to make sure that we are within one of these transactional boundaries to make that work. So let's go ahead and implement that. So the first thing we need is we need a RideStarted event. And we're just going to call that event. And then we are going to create a new instance of it. Then we need to set the fields. So we'll have event.set ride ID, and we can pull the ride ID out of the ride. So we'll do ride.getID. Then we do event.set user email. Now in this case, this is actually passed in as a parameter. So we can just actually pull that parameter. And then we can do event.set vehicle ID. And again, this comes in as a parameter to the method. So we'll just pull in the vehicle ID. And then finally, we need event.setStartTime. And again, this is a parameter on the method. So we'll just pull in the start time. Now, the final thing we need to do is to actually publish the event. So we'll do event publisher.publish, and we will pass in an event name, and we can use the RideStarted.event name for that, or an event type. And then we need the actual event itself. We've just created that, so we'll just pass in the event. So that takes care of our start ride method and actually publishing our ride started event. Over in a terminal, I'm just going to very quickly run my tests and make sure that my code is compiling and passing all the tests the way I expect it to. This will just take a few quick seconds, and you can see that it did in fact pass all my tests, so I'm ready to go ahead and actually run the application. Over in my mover application, you'll see that I've already logged in, and I'm looking at the vehicles page here. Now what I want to do is I actually want to start a ride, and theoretically, once I start a ride, this should initiate that ride started event. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay, so you can see that my ride has been started. It's got a vehicle ID associated with it. If I go back over to my rides, you can also see the ride there as well. So from the user interface perspective, everything appears to be working, but let's go see what happened in the database. Okay, so over in my database terminal, I'm just going to very quickly do a show tables again. So again, you can remember we created the events table previously. There it is there in the database. Let's take a look at it. So we'll do a select star from events, and you can see that there is one row in that table. That row consists of a UUID, which is the ID of the event, not the ID of the ride or the vehicle or anything like that. That's the ID of the event. We have a timestamp, which again is the timestamp of the event. We have ride started, which is the event type. And then we have a blob of JSON, which is our serialized event. In that blob of JSON, you can see that we have our ride ID. So there's the UUID representing our ride ID. We have a start time right here. We have a user email right here. And we have a vehicle ID right here. So it looks like our event came through exactly as we expected, which is good. Now that the data is in our database, we can start consuming it whenever we're ready. There's no technical reason that we have to do that right away. Unless we've enabled something that actually clears that table periodically, the data will always be there and we can come back to it whenever we need to. Now, there may be business reasons why we have to get it done right away, but from a technical perspective, the data's there and we will get to it when we get to it. And that may take some time. But that's going to be the next step in our exercises, is to actually start taking that data and pushing it somewhere where it will be useful.